When someone says that a director has his own style, what they mean is that the director has a distinctive manner of expression that's communicated through his artistic choices. By looking at not just one movie but an entire body of work, one might find certain techniques and patterns that you can dissect and sometimes adapt to perfect your own cinematic language. Hi, I'm Mike. Strap in, because today we're going to talk about the stylings of Matthew Vaughn. Matthew Vaughn is a British filmmaker who made a name for himself as a producer on the Guy Ritchie movies Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. He's since then directed 5 movies himself, and arguably, he's never made a bad one. If we take a look at his filmography, it's apparent that he's attracted to big budget action and adventure, but what sets his movies apart from the more generic efforts is the level of detail and personal flair that goes into every scene. If we compare Vaughn to his old buddy Guy Ritchie, which I'm gonna do, we see some similarities in their work. They both enjoy colorful characters and interconnected plots, and they both have a very formalist approach in the way they shoot and tell a story. Their movies are highly stylized, utilizing an array of cinematic techniques from filters to slow motion. Perhaps because of these similarities, Vaughn opted for a more smooth and concise style, working with a color palette that has gotten increasingly vibrant throughout his work compared to Ritchie's desaturated and gritty look. The first thing I want to dive into when talking about Matthew Vaughn is the moving camera. There's a certain amount of smoothness to his movies that come not only from his cool characters, but the way the camera weaves its way through a scene. Visually, he is great at connecting something of importance with subtle movements. Like in Kick-Ass, where our hero is contemplating his destiny, or in X-Men, where Charles speaks telepathically to Mora for the first time. These subtle pushes engage us psychologically, but he also uses movement to instill a sense of pace and urgency. The first time Charles tries on Cerebro, we see how he builds up tension through a series of camera motions and edits. He's creating a mood or sensation before stopping the camera perfectly on the punchline.
Are you sure we can't shave your head? Don't touch my head.
If we go back to his first movie, Layer Cake, we see even his continuous shots are done with a certain level of detail. Our main characters enter a posh country club. They look in amazement at the chandeliers, so we know that they might be a bit out of place. They are ushered in, and we see a beautiful room filled with prestigious people, but then we are brought into a private room, indicating that the man in this room must be very important or powerful. A lot of great visual blocking and a beautiful shot to go with it. Again, the camera comes to a halt, indicating that our attention and the focus of the scene is on the meeting at hand. This movement and the way he edits give his movies a great feeling of momentum and forward push. Even the more mundane scenes are blocked in a way that make them more engaging because they reveal new elements and information without a single cut.
Would you like a lift home? Who are you? The man who got you released.
Besides the camera, there's another piece of connective tissue that bridges his scenes so well: his creative transitions. Pretty much every which way you can make a transition, he has done. We got match cuts, fade match cuts, slides to the left, wipes to the right, wipes from above, time-lapse transitions, cartoonerizations, and of course my favorite, the bubbly fade. These transitions, coupled with the camera movement, give his movies a sense of fluidity, where each scene feels connected to the next, and as an audience member, it engages you on a visual level. He isn't exactly a subtle filmmaker, nor has he ever claimed to be. He cites Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and James Bond as his major cinematic influences, while also being vocal of his love for Tarantino movies. As such, his later films have come to be genre-bending and playful, tipping his hat to past work while also breaking new ground. Vaughn expresses his creativity in a lot of ways, but another worth highlighting is the way he integrates CG elements within his films. If you remember the Kingsman bar scene, chances are you remember a high-paced fist brawl with some crazy umbrella smacks, but there are at least 4 distinct CG shots within. We have the glass flying through the air, the tooth being knocked out, the coil being shot, and of course the umbrella at the end. What Vaughn does rather seamlessly is he combines the elements of a hand-to-hand brawl with these moments of fun incredibility. Even his more grand CG shots usually end or start in a real plate or shot. By doing this, he is connecting the fantastical and unreal with something we as the audience can see is tangible. Here's a quote from the man himself. "If you got the money, you can do anything on film these days. Nothing is impossible," which becomes boring to me. I use CG as a prop to the story, not the other way around. In today's climate, it is refreshing to hear someone recognizing CGI as an important creative tool that can add to your story without filling up the entire frame with nonsense. Although sometimes, he himself might push that boundary a little bit. Now last but not least, I want to talk about what the man is actually known for: the action. Vaughn is primarily an action director who has dabbled in a lot of different genres: gangster, fantasy, comic book, and spy. Common for all of them is that they are high-paced and very thrilling. In his later efforts, we see an almost comical contrast to the tone of his movies and the way he depicts violence within them. But when you really break it down, what is it that makes his action sequences so damn engaging? First of all, he is very creative, and he never goes for the easy solution. But from a technical standpoint, we can see there's a number of different techniques that his editor, John Harris, utilizes. Let's take a look at the warehouse scene from Kick-Ass and break down some of the different elements. To start the action off, we have the increase of speed. Let's see that again. Gnarly. Now this is followed by a series of jump cuts, and then upon impact there is a distinct camera shake that looks more like the frame itself is being affected. This frame shake adds a lot of wallop to the impact, and the jump cuts add a sense of speed and momentum. We get a series of these as Nicolas Cage tears up the warehouse, including a nice quick zoom, and then right at the end, on the last shot, we get slow motion, which is a nice contrast to how the whole sequence started. Moving to the bar scene in Kingsman, we see how he's refined this style of high-paced action. We don't get the obvious jarring jump cuts, but if we go frame by frame, we see that he removes frames before the actual hit. You see it? Right there. This frame removal makes the action seem fast and snappy. He still moves the camera or shakes the frame upon impact, but in a blink and you'll miss it moment, you'll see that he also adds a layer to his entire frame whenever there is a gunshot. This happens through the entire movie for just a single frame at a time, which is just one of many elements that your eyes rarely notice. Obviously, these techniques aren't new or entirely unique to Vaughn, but he has been experimenting with them since Layer Cake, and he has gotten increasingly good at it. There is a clear focus in the action, and we as the audience rarely get confused as to what's happening despite the fast pacing. Kinda like Mad Max director George Miller, Vaughn has a great understanding of action, blocking, and eye lines. The bar scene comes to an end with a nice little standoff, and notice the movement here. Harry flips his umbrella from left to right, while the camera goes from right to left. Our eye is on the umbrella. Cut, and we immediately see the gun. We follow that movement left, cut again, and both elements meet perfectly in the middle. That's pretty solid work, and it's this kind of attention to detail that makes all his films stand out in a sea of action mediocrity. To be noticed, you need to be innovative and creative, always trying new things to elevate your craft. Hopefully, through this short insight to one of the most exciting action directors today, you'll feel inspired to create your own techniques and further what is possible on the big screen. That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and hopefully I'll see you next time on Mike and the Movies.